2 in 1 chapter. Chapter 5, Poison Pharmacist. The successive blows made Count Raymond very disappointed with his son. After disappointment, he worked harder. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't have any thoughts anymore about such a talented idiot son. The Count put the direction of effort on his beautiful Countess. Since this son is already a waste, he is destined to have no ability to inherit his own family and to carry it forward. Then, he have to work hard to have a son out. The Earl's continuous sowing cultivation in his wife for 1 month finally worked. Soon the Countess became pregnant again, and in the winter of the 2nd year, Count Raymond had his 2nd son as he wished. While the whole family were celebrating this happy event, Dewey was still in his room reading the hard-to-find magic potion books. Thankfully, the last sentence of M.H. Clark's departure was effective. Under the idea of what could be worse, Earl simply let his idiot son learn magic potion. For almost a whole few months, the Count had no intention to take another look at the son who had disappointed him completely. Even the Countess, who was kind to Dewey, had to reduce the number of visits to her son because she was expecting a baby. The day after the mother gave birth to a younger brother, Dewey was taken to the Earl's room by the servant and visited the weak mother and her younger brother. It can be seen that the Earl is very satisfied, because the newborn son, like the tradition of the Roland family, cries loudly and powerfully, and although he is a newly born baby, he can see that he must be strong in the future. Count Raymond was not even interested in seeing the son more than a few. After greeting him with courtesy, he waved the son back. Although the Countess lying on the bed was a little intolerant, the cry of the newborn baby just caught her attention. Dewey stepped back quietly, behind the Earl's satisfied laughter, and the baby's cry. Dewey couldn't help but feel a little lost, even though his heart was already dead. He reminded himself, "Stop thinking. You are not a person in this world. He is not your father. And she is not." Thinking of that stormy night, this beautiful woman had kneeled down in front of the statue for herself for a night, and Dewey gave birth to a bit of grief and shook her head vigorously. Working hard to dispel the inner thoughts, Dewey can only turn his full attention to learning. It is undeniable that Dewey has a great interest in the magic of this world. Although the Clark master determined that he had no talent, Dewey hoped that there would be a chance. Naturally, there are a considerable number of books on the dignified Earl's house. Many of them are about magic. After reading numerous books, Dewey had to admit that the M.H. Clark was right. He did not have the talent to become a magician. Because even if he sat day and night, he could not feel any fluctuation of magic elements. Another time, he even fell asleep unconsciously. Then, Dewey, who did not give up, shifted his energy to what M.H. Clark called magic potion. Because, it seems, magic potion is also a kind of magic. Moreover, potions are barely regarded as a type of magician. Although, Dewey asked the servants in the family, and then he knew what this so-called type of magician is, in the people's hearts. In this world, although people say that potions are also a kind of magicians, even the Magic Society has publicly determined this. But from a practical point of view, what people really think is this is also a magician? Potion, as the name suggests, is the study of the configuration of various magic potions. And after hearing so much, Dewey also made a very appropriate metaphor in his heart. If you compare the medical industry in the world of your previous life, then a real magician is equivalent to a doctor in various subjects in the hospital. But the potionist, at most it was the little nerds who fought the doctor. Although they both work in hospitals, the status and income of nurses are far less than those of real doctors. But after careful study, Dewey became very interested in this potion. In his opinion, this is a very new field. For example, how to use Dora jumping frog's eyes and purple absinthe to configure a dump that can make people lose their ability to speak for a short time. For another example, how to use the saliva of starving sword dragon to add clover and the liver of a grand triangle fish to grind a kind of medicinal powder that can make people petrified. For another example, a powder made from a substance extracted from a fire scale grass that is dried and shattered can be burned instantly when sprayed anywhere. However, the above are the names of animals and plants, especially things like jumping frog, sword ruler dragon, key triangle scale fish, fire scale grass, and so on. This is something that Dewey has never heard of. Like what? This is simply like a chemical system in another world. Dewey never thought that the so-called magic could be explained like this. A medicine that can become dumb, a medicine that can petrify people, a medicine that can cause burning. Very interesting, isn't it? The profession of potions, in Dewey's mind, is actually more like a doctor. It's just that doctors save people, and potions are better at making poison. What Dewey didn't know was that his idea coincided with what people in this world think of magic pharmacists. Poison pharmacist. Days pass by. Dewey is still addicted to this magic potion. However, his knowledge can still only be read on paper. After all, many of the strange raw materials mentioned in magic potion are not available in the Earl's house of the Rolling family, which can be called aristocracy. These materials are only available in the labs of real magicians. In the realm of magic, pharmacists usually act as assistants to real magicians. And, for such a young child, even if he was the Earl's son, no one dared to provide him with those dangerous magic herbs. Unconsciously 6 years have passed. In the past 6 years, Dewey's younger brother has thrived. This child named Gabri is more like a typical Rolling family heir than the idiot Dewey. This Dewey brother has been healthy and active since childhood. At the age of 6, he has begun training with the Alpha Swordsman. It is said that the captain's evaluation of the Count's second son was very good. Almost everyone in the house regarded him as the hope of the Llewellyn family in the future. The Earl apparently devoted all of his care to his second son. He even decided to wait another 2 years. When Gabri was 8 years old, he could officially teach his Rowland family's family martial arts key. The love of the servants, the praise of the captain, the care of his father, and even an Enlightenment teacher invited thought that the Count's second son was very talented. It was even heard that, for the future of the family, the Earl has decided to marry a certain family in the capital and set a remarkable relationship for his 6-year-old son. Beyond that, Dewey, the eldest son of the family, was forgotten in the corner. The Earl rarely even saw his eldest son for a month. The only Countess, who often ran to see his son in private, and even occasionally at night, the Countess would come to Dewey's room barefoot in pajamas, hug his poor child, and sing a lullaby to him, coax him to sleep. Only at these times will Dewey's heart soften. Sometimes, he had to pretend to sleep to avoid this moment that made him cry, and often, the Countess' tears and sighs accompanied him to sleep. Finally, when Dewey was 13 and his brother Gabri was 7, news came. It is also the final decision made by the Earl. Starting next year, he will begin to teach Gabriel martial arts personally, and to teach his family's home-cooked science. At the same time, Count Raymond also agreed with the Empire as Chancellor of the Exchequer. The two political allies rely on this marriage to further cooperate, and Gabriel's future wife will be the granddaughter of the Empire as current Chancellor, now 9 years old. In fact, there is news that this family relationship was settled very early. It was set even before Gabri was born. However, it was Dewey who was originally decided to marry the Chancellor's daughter. It's just that Dewey has been regarded as an idiot with no future, so the marriage partner responsible for the two alliances has become his brother, genius, Gabri. As for Dewey, he left the capital in a horse-drawn carriage on a dark, windy night for a month. The destination of his trip was the territory of the Rawlings family in the southern province of Côte d'Azur. The announcement was that Master Dewey, who is 13 years old, who is about to become an adult, will go to the family territory to take care of the family's industry. In fact, Dewey knew it. He was assigned care of the family industry. That's just a joke. Everyone knows that the important cause of the family is in the capital, in the political center of this empire, and those industries in the family territory. Those farmlands, those farmers, what other taxes? These only need to send a few housekeepers. In fact, the exact news that Dewey received was that he would probably leave the Earl's house and live in the family's ancestral home in a certain country in the southern province of Côte d'Azur. And, without Lord Earl's call, he wouldn't want to return to the capital in his life. Everyone understands that the title heir to the Rawling family has been transferred from Dewey's head to his 7-year-old genius brother. Chapter 6, The Restless Heart. The clouds on the horizon were reddened by the setting sun. In the evening of this spring, a beautifully decorated carriage slowly drove down a certain road in the southern province of Côte. This exquisite buggy is made of the finest materials. The solemn and noble black body, as well as the exquisite carvings and gold patterns on the carriage, all show the noble identity of the owner of this carriage. Especially the badge of that family on the car. A circle of irises dangles around the blade of the two crossed swords, and there is a crown on the hilt, enveloped in the flames. Such a badge will only be seen in the eyes of a noble who knows enough about badges. Of all the families of the entire empire, not many can cross two swords on the badge. These two long swords represent at least one imperial marshal-level figure in the history of the family. The crown above symbolizes the blood relationship between this family and the royal family. Before and after the carriage, there are 10 knights wearing light armors, riding steeds, knights with swords. Their armors are polished, and their weapons are bright, but inconsistent with this beautiful line. These knights are all dejected look. Mater was sitting next to the driver. He bore a grassroot board in his mouth, glanced at the sky, and sighed deeply, turned and leaned down to knock on the carriage window. Master Dewey, we need find a place to rest. It's getting dark. In the carriage, Dewey was reading. He was interrupted by, looked up. He opened the window and glanced at the setting sun in the sky. Okay, Mater immediately responded. At this time, the horse in front came running quickly, and soon came to the carriage. The family guard knight wearing light armor was slightly panting, and said loudly, "General Manager, there is a small town in front. It seems that this is the only place we can choose to rest tonight." Mater, once a groom, still couldn't get used to being called General Manager, but this honest man took off his hat and nodded to the young knight riding in front of him. "The master has spoken and will rest in front today." Looking at the loyal and resolute face of this young knight, Mater sighed. Pure young man. This time with Master Dewey's obedience to return to the home of the Rawling family, there are only 20 family guard knights. The eldest son of Lord Earl Raymond, the number 2 figure of the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Army, traveled home this time, but he only brought such 20 guards and his own manager plus a driver. Such a follower lineup is too shabby. You know, those giants in the capital, even on a wild outing, will bring a lot of servants and guards. As for the guard knights of these 20 families, They were all chosen carefully. Everyone knows that this Dewey master has completely fallen out of favor in the family. The future of the family lies in his brother. Although not explicitly stated, everyone understands that this Dewey master has been deprived of his family heir status. There is no doubt that the future of such a master, who has been assigned to return to his hometown to care for his ancestors, is very bleak. Everyone is utilitarian, and everyone wants to stay in the bustling capital. No one will be willing to follow a waste-like owner to return to the backcountry to live a mediocre life, especially those knights. Whoever doesn't want to stay in the capital, staying with the Count may be able to win the favor of the Count with their martial arts in the future. So, when arranged to go back with Master Dewey, everyone was too shy to avoid it. No knight would be willing to waste his good years in the days of accompanying a wandering owner to his hometown to take care of those farmers. As a result, the 20 knights who were finally selected are undoubtedly a group of unlucky ghosts. Either they are poor in martial arts and cannot be reused, or they are lonely in their daily lives, disliked by their colleagues or excluded, or they are young and ignorant people with simple minds and easy to deceive. Looking at the young knight who came back in front of the path, Mater had already made a conclusion to this young man. Most of them is the young and ignorant guy with a simple mind. They haven't realized that I'd been sent out. After leaving the capital, everyone's interest was not high along the way. The only one who still maintained a relaxed attitude was only Master Dewey. Despite being assigned, no one ever heard a young man complain about even one sentence. Every day, he only sits in a carriage and reads books from his home, rarely speaks, and has a gentle attitude towards people. Rejecting the thoughts in his head, Mater sighed loudly, signaling everyone to speed up. The ex-groom, the current general manager, has a good mentality. At least he was very good at comforting himself. No matter how he was mad, no matter how good he was just a little groom anyway. Today, it is already a blessing by the young master. Although it is only a general manager who is assigned, but at least a few more coins per month, this is a fact. Touching the hard money bag in his arms, the general manager smiled. Well, I heard that the province of Côte is located in the southern part of the empire. The girls in the south have delicate skin and petite bodies. Maybe, old Mater can marry a woman here. Juki town is the only town within a 100-mile radius. In this town with hundreds of people, there is only one tavern with a simple name, Juki Tavern. Because it is the only pub, the business will not be too bad. Cheap alcoholic beverages, cheap barbecues, cheap prostitutes. Even people living at the bottom of society need some joy in life, don't they? When Dewey's team arrived in front of the tavern, Dewey looked up and closed the book in his hand. Then the lights in the carriage went out. As he stepped out of the car, Dewey glanced up at the rusty iron signboard hanging from the tavern, swaying back and forth in the wind, the noise coming from the gate, and the windows were full of lively lights. When Dewey walked into the tavern, he immediately caught the attention of the people inside. After all, a small group of knights wearing light armor poured into this small tavern, and they are very eye-catching. Dewey walked in last. When he walked in, the cavaliers had done their job well. Cleared an open space, a clean table, and surrounded Dewey in a safe circle. Everyone in the tavern was looking at Dewey, looking at this young boy who looked very young. Dewey's figure is quite tall. After all, he came from the military family of the Roland family, but his body is slightly thinner. The beautiful dress on his body is darted with lace on the collar and cuffs, showing his noble identity, except that the red hair of the typical Roland family blood is a little too eye-catching. He looks impressionable to be weak. He was pale, slender, white and silent, and still holding a book in his hand. The other guard knights had already started to carry their luggage. Mater threw out a few gold coins. The owner of the tavern immediately cleared out a few clean rooms, arranged for people to feed horses, and so on. At this moment, Dewey was enduring all kinds of strange eyes from the surrounding area. Oh, it seems. A noble master. Ah, how could an aristocrat come to our place? Boss, I think you should store the chair this guy has sat in. Maybe you can sell it for a good price. After a brief period of silence, the pub was revived and everyone was talking about Dewey. Obviously, in such a small place, such a cheap tavern, running into an aristocratic man with gorgeous clothes is a very rare thing. There are also a few heavy makeup, women with exposed dresses, exposed shoulders and cleavages, trying to squeeze over to talk with Dewey, but the old mater has completed his career well and drove these prostitutes away. When shoving, the two prostitutes were pushed aside, and they couldn't help but yell at mater for a few words. The old slang did not care about the slang in the country, but a drunkard immediately ran past him, holding the prostitute. Ah, my sweetheart, what's so good about that little ghost? Let uncle love you. After that, he pinched the woman's ass fiercely, and the prostitute smiled, and immediately sat in the arms of the drunk. Dewey's face was calm. He drank a glass of wine quietly, and even when people around him pointed at him, he just frowned slightly. The guard knights next to him were also listless. In this place full of cheap alcohol and fat powder, these knights couldn't help but lament the future of their future. And how good it would be to stay in the flowery world of the capital. Just then, with a bang, the door of the tavern was pushed open, and then came in from outside. 3 men and 1 woman came in. From their looks of dust, and apparently worthless dressing, obviously they are not locals, but also outsiders like Dewey. What made the people in the tavern silent is that all men's eyes, almost the first moment, focused on the girl among the people who walked in. This is a girl about 18 or 19 years old, with long brown hair and a gorgeous face. Such a face obviously has an aggressive charm to the opposite sex. And she was wearing a close-fitting leather armor. Obviously, the leather armor was of the finest quality, and did not know what kind of Warcraft leather it was made of, exuding a clear blue color, and carved some weird patterns on it. And her lower body was even more irritated. She was wearing shorts, bare all the white plump thighs, and a leather strap tied to the thigh, with a dagger on it. A machete hung on her waist, and behind her was a delicate bow, with a row of silver arrows in her quiver. From the bright silver of that arrow, Dewey immediately recognized that it was of pure silver. The bow and arrow made with this sterling silver is really a luxury. The gorgeous girl's rounded thigh immediately became the focus of many men in the pub, and she seemed to bend over inadvertently. Chic leather neckline in the chest and immediately exposed snow-white powdery cleavage, which immediately made the 2 drunk eyes sitting close to her so that the wine glass in their hands fell to the ground. Several male companions around the girl, a strong man like a bull, were wearing heavy armor and carrying a heavy shield behind them. Judging by the defiant breath on his face and the amazing muscles and a few scars on his bare arm, this is a powerful warrior. The other tall guy looked very keen, with a long bow hanging on his shoulders. From the black bowstring, his long and strong fingers, and the black iron ring on his finger, this person should an archer roll. And the last guy is what makes Dewey the most concerned. This is a man in a gray robe. He looks very ordinary, but there is always a cold light shining in his eyes. His attire was so simple that people around him seemed to ignore him. However, Dewey pays most attention to this guy, because he was all over the road, and a silver leaf-shaped badge on his chest. people in this small place don't recognize the badge. But Dewey does. And some of the guarded knights of the knowledgeable Roland family also know. This last guy in a gray robe is actually a magician. Although it is only a silver leaf badge, the lowest level of magician. But the silver leaf badge on the chest is undoubtedly a genuine magician certified by the Magic Society. After carefully staring at the badge for a while, Dewey immediately had an idea.